Successful AI adoption requires you to know exactly where your company is in the AI adoption journey so that you know what are the right things to do and what are the right times to do those things to maximize your chances of success. I'm Carlos Lara, and today we are going to cover the 3 steps in your AI adoption journey to maximize your short term success when it comes to AI adoption, but also your company's long term success in this journey. So, the very first thing that you want to keep in mind, the first step is prove. Before you think of scale and changing the world, you want to prove the value of AI for your organization on a small scale. And the first step is having an initial use case, what we call a proof of concept. Now, a proof of concept is not a pilot or an isolated experiment or even a demo. It's not like that. It's a real use case with real business value, with real predefined KPIs, measurable metrics, and that way you can prove the value of AI for your organization on that small scale first to see if AI is even right for that given business problem, if the use case is right. So you're developing those critical capabilities early on, and that is the critical first step. You want to prove the value. Now, how do you identify that initial use case? How do you know exactly where to start? You have to get good at identifying the right business problems to solve with AI, because not every business problem can be solved with AI, at least not directly. So you want to identify the correct business problems to solve and then being able to frame them into machine learning problems or deep learning problems and being able to really master that first stage, which is identifying the business problems. See, a lot of people, a lot of teams, especially technical people, they want to get going with the implementation, with creating the machine learning models, training them, and all of that, getting the data. But before you do that, you have to understand what are the business problems for your company that can be solved with AI. So that is the critical thing, the skill that you want to develop early on at the proof stage, at the initial stages of AI adoption here, identifying the right business problems. Also, very importantly, at this stage, at the proof stage, see here in proof, you're not looking for 10 times, return on investment. You're not too much focused on ROI. You're much more focused on validated learning. Validated learning means that in the process of implementing the first use case and identifying, first of all, what it is and see if machine learning is the right way to go about solving that problem, you want to learn what works, what doesn't work, what are the challenges, what success looks like, what failure looks like, and what's it going to take for your company to implement it. So a lot of it is, we already covered previously that for you to be able to adopt artificial intelligence in your organization successfully, you need to adopt a lean methodology. You may be familiar with the book The Lean Startup by Eric Ries, but the point is that you create a hypothesis, right? That is the business problem. So we have a hypothesis that this particular business problem can be solved by machine learning. And this is the hypothesis for what the machine learning solution looks like. But then as you go ahead and implement it on the small scale first, you are getting validated learning. You're getting feedback from users, from customers, from clients, and seeing what works and what doesn't work. And then you iterate. You go from that, you learn from your mistakes, you do more of what works, you do less of what doesn't work, and start developing those best practices. But validated learning is incredibly important at the proof scale here. If your company is just getting started with AI adoption, very important. The biggest focus here when you're proving the value, well, it's to focus on business value. Again, see, the machine learning algorithms, the deep learning models, that's perfectly fine. You need them, that's part of the use case, but the business value is more important. And we covered previously that business is always more important than AI. That's one of the top 3 lessons from a millionaire AI entrepreneur. And you want to focus on the business value. Where is the value for the organization for this given use case, right? Or even at this point, you may not be looking at the entire organization and maybe a specific product or a specific process or a part of a system, but you want to think, what is the value there? What is the tangible value? What is the intangible value? And what are the peripheral benefits? So you want to look at the business value there and focus on that and measure that. And when it comes to proving, at this stage of proof, you also want to consider the elements, the data, what I call data elements. So once you identify the right business problem, or what you think is the right business problem, you frame it as a machine learning or a deep learning problem, then you need data, right? Machine learning models use data, learn from data to be able to answer business questions. That's really how it is. Machine learning is using data to answer business questions. So what is the data? How are you, first of all, do you even have the data right now? And if you do have the data, is it the right data? Is it prepared properly, is set in a what I call ML friendly or deep learning friendly, that is ready to be used? Or do you need, so there's a process of acquiring the data, preparing the data, labeling the data. Labeling the data, see, in practice, you're going to be using most likely supervised learning, and that's the subject of a different tutorial, but the data itself needs to be labeled with the right answers the machine learning model is trying to predict. So we need to give the machine learning algorithms examples of what the right answer looks like for the question that they're trying to answer, the business question, and you need to label that data. You need to include that in the data, and that's a process in itself, and it can be very complicated, time consuming. So you want to know what does it take for you to get the right data, prepare it, label it, and then use it properly, right? So those are the things that you want to prove early on a small scale, but still you want to develop that. You want to define success. You need KPIs. You need to define success metrics, what success looks like. And that's why, see, that's another one of the lessons from a millionaire AI entrepreneur that we covered previously is choose a business problem, identify a business problem that you're already solving so that you have that performance benchmark. You know, that problem is already being solved in one way or another. You know how well that solution is working currently. So now you can implement the machine learning, the deep learning solution, and compare how well it's doing. So you have that benchmark. But you want to define what success looks like, and not just with the models and the performance of the models, but also, you know, the data. What does it take for us to be able to create a correct data pipeline, data engineering pipeline? And that's a little beyond the scope of this, of, you know, what we're covering today, but still you want to define what success looks like. And at the end of the day, success is a function of business value. Where's the value for the organization? Even if you can't see it too much right now, is there an indication that we're going in that direction of business value over time? Extremely important, proving stage, proving for the organization. And by the way, this proving the business value is extremely important also when you're managing stakeholders, because a lot of stakeholders, you know, as of today, they're still not quite sure how AI works, you know, maybe even in the C-suite and, you know, more executives. And you want to just show that value, show the measurable value for the organization. And that's the language, the business language that everyone can understand. So that's also very critical for managing stakeholders and keeping everyone motivated on track with the implementation and for bringing AI into the organization, because this is just the first step. And if this succeeds, you're going into step 2, step 3. So that's extremely important that you have that initial success up front. And the last one here, the proof stage, is you want to prove that you can actually go, for a given use, for this use case, go from research to production. And a lot of AI projects fail because it's working in the lab, right? We're able to develop the machine learning models. Maybe it has some good performance in the sense that it's answering the business questions correctly, but it never makes it to production, meaning it's never actually deployed, you know, to users. It's never actually really used in the organization. It's more like being used in the lab and being tested on, and it's really only seen by the machine learning engineers or data scientists or a select group of people, but it's not really part of the process of the product of the system. It didn't really actually make its way into the business or into the part of the business that it was trying to address in the first place. So you need to prove that you can actually go from research to production, even if it's on a small scale. It's extremely important. So prove. If you can get proof correctly, you're going to move on to the next steps, but this is the most important step of all, especially if your company is just getting started with AI adoption.